Why English Studies? An exploratory video by Emma Page. What it means to be an English Studies major. The idea of becoming an English Studies major typically comes from someone who has a love for reading and/or writing. An English Studies major is someone whose brain thinks about underlying motifs, themes, meanings, etc. while they read. An English Studies major is someone whose mind creates storylines, poetry, characters, etc. to write about. An English Studies major is someone who sees today's youth and feels inspired to share with them the love they, themselves, have for English studies. Being an English Studies major is a mashup of studying literature, writing literature, and teaching literature. Being an English Studies major means feeling a connection to the pages of books, whether they be blank or filled in. Why am I an English Studies major? Ever since I can remember, which, as we've learned, isn't very far, don't have a very good memory, I have loved to read and write. I have memories of going into Barnes & Noble with my mom and begging her to let me go to the children's section so I could pick out a book. I happened to write a book in 7th grade. It wasn't very good, and it either ended up in the trash or being burned because I am not the best writer. I've been correcting my mother's grammar over the public forum of Facebook for years. Still to this day, my mother does not know the difference between there, and there. No matter how many times I teach her, she just doesn't get it. Unfortunately, high school came quickly and I had no idea what I wanted to do afterwards. I knew that I loved English class, but I didn't know how I could stay in English class forever. But that's when it hit me. I wanted to be just like my English teacher, Miss Vetros. She was fun and bubbly, but she was serious about our learning. She made coming into the classroom so much fun. Miss Vetros genuinely cared about all of our success in her classroom. She wanted to see all of us get the best grades we could, and she wanted to know that we were leaving her classroom with a love of a new book or an understanding of what we just read. I remember at our graduation, I was one of the first people to go through and hug her afterwards, and she was wearing big sunglasses so she could hide the fact that she was bawling her eyes out because she just cared about us so much and she was so proud of how far we'd come. I wanted that for myself. I am an English Studies major because I believe in the success of young people. What is the purpose of liberal arts? Liberal arts is defined by Merriam-Webster as college or university studies, such as language, philosophy, literature, abstract science, intended to provide chiefly general knowledge and to develop general intellectual capacities, such as reason and judgment, as opposed to professional or vocational skills. The amount of subjects under the liberal arts umbrella, language, philosophy, literature, abstract science, etc., is what makes liberal arts so crucial. The purpose of learning all of these subjects, as well as learning reason and judgment, is to get more of an expansive knowledge. When learning a professional or vocational skill, that is all a person learns. They do not get to learn something about everything, but instead, they learn everything about one something. In today's world, having knowledge about a lot of subjects is important. It allows the person to narrow down what they want to learn more about. Having the skills of reason and judgment give a person the chance to think about things by themselves. The classroom is not the only place they are able to learn. The world around them serves as a classroom as well. English Studies and my future. In my future, I will be a high school English teacher. I will teach students how to read and analyze literature as well as write about literature in different ways. Eventually, I will earn a master's degree. After that is achieved, I really would like to take more classes about writing. I've gotten very into poetry in the last year and enjoy writing it. I took a creative writing class at Fitchburg State, with a professor named Steve Edwards, and he changed my life. I hated poetry before his class. I didn't want to listen to it. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to write about it. I didn't want anything to do with it. But then he showed us poetry that wasn't just all rhymes. It was expression and feeling, and I understood it for once in my life. And then I realized that I could write my own poetry, except it's really crappy, but I think it's fun to have crappy poetry. After learning more about creative writing, I see myself teaching a creative writing class to my high schoolers. I took a creative writing class in high school as my first creative writing class, and we did this activity where we listened to music and we wrote about whatever we wanted while we listened to this music. And then we shared what our stories were about, and everybody's stories were different but along the same lines because the music made us all feel a certain type of way, which was expressed in our writing. The goal for me is to uncover a passion for writing as early as possible and for as many students as possible. My passion for listening to, reading, writing poetry was sparked pretty late in my life, which I really, really regret. I could have way better poetry right now, but instead I'm writing the poetry that a 10th grade girl writes. Even after I am no longer a teacher, I will still be reading and writing. My teaching career will not last forever, but my passion for reading and writing will. I will be reading new works of literature and learning as I read. I will be reading old works of literature and thinking about how much I have progressed since the last time I read it. My favorite work of literature. The work of literature I will always turn to for comfort is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I have loved this play since I read it in my freshman year of high school. I love it so much that I have a short quote spoken by Juliet tattooed on my right shoulder. The tattoo reads, "Cut him out in little stars," and underneath it is the picture of a girl looking up at the moon and the moon's looking back at her. The full quote reads, "Come night, come Romeo, come thou day and night, for thou would lie upon the wings of night, whiter than new snow upon a raven's back. Come, gentle night, come, loving, black-browed night, give me my Romeo, and when I shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all will be in love with night, and pay no attention to the garish sun." And that's from Act 3, Scene 2. I could go on all day about what this quote means and why I love it so much, but I'll keep it short and sweet. I love this quote so much because it is so easy to picture Juliet in her bedroom thinking about the love she has inside of her. Although falling in love has ruined much of her innocence, it has brought about another side of her that she is still exploring. Juliet's soliloquy holds anguish in death references, and also bliss in her newfound love. The contrast of anguish and bliss in one soliloquy is something that every time I read it gets me excited, because it's so here and there, but it's refreshing. Some outside reassurance. It is my belief that my students, no matter their age, will be able to understand and have their own opinions about not just literature. I want to be able to say that I gave my students the confidence to have an opinion about today's world and society. Mostly people tell me that they will not be able to do that until they reach college. Luckily, Mark Edmondson is on my side. They will say it is dangerous to talk about crucial matters in a classroom. A student's path may be radically changed by such discussion. The path may be blocked. It may become confused. But so may a life be ruined by not thinking. So may a life be ruined that never leaves the provinces of easy, unexamined faith in the transcendent. They fear chaos, they say. They fear disorder. But perhaps what they fear most truly is democracy. Oftentimes, my lack of creativity in writing makes me want to give up. My 10th grade girl poetry sometimes makes me a little angry because I feel like I can't get past writing about the stupid heartbreaks that I've had, or my cat, or something dumb. And I really feel like I'll never be as good as my favorite authors. Not that I'm really trying to be, but the feeling that you're not going to be as good as someone else really hurts. But in reality, never being as good as my favorite authors is okay. Because for me, reading is more important than writing. Each book was a world unto itself, and in it I took refuge. Though I knew myself incapable of making up stories such as my favorite authors wrote, I felt that my opinions frequently coincided with theirs, and, to use Montaigne's phrase, I took to trailing far behind them, murmuring, "Here, here." In short of my entire presentation, I have loved English since I can remember. I have loved reading and I have loved writing, and I have always been begging my mom for money to buy more books. I will always be grateful to my professors and what they've taught me about English studies over my 4 years at Fitchburg State. I am grateful to Fitchburg State as a whole. I am grateful to the dirty city of Fitchburg, and I'm grateful to all the authors who I've read and enjoyed. Thank you for listening to my presentation.